Hello, everyone. This is Jeff Risdon with Lions Wire and the Detroit Lions podcast with a little mailbag for y'all for the summer weekend. Posted a clarion call for questions from the Patreon Slack channel for the Detroit Lions podcast, and I got a lot of really good ones. Printed some out here. For time purposes, we're not going to answer them all, and there was actually two of them that were asked that Chris and I are going to cover in the next episode of the Detroit Lions podcast, which is technically scheduled for Sunday evening if I'm back from my family trip with my in-laws this weekend, and hopefully that ends soon enough that I can get back and do it. Trust me on that. Apologize for not being able to do a full show this week. That was my fault. It's a issue that unfortunately came up that had to be attended to, but we'll do a little mailbag instead to ease the suffering of not having Chris with me. Let's go. Let's see what we got here. All right. First question from my guy Mathis. What does success look like for Jeff Okudah? What should we expect the CB room to do? All right. Okudah. I think success would be playing 17 games, starting either outside or in the nickel, where I actually think he's going to wind up playing. I think he's going to be our starting slot corner. I think he's going to play a lot there. I think he can play outside, depending on the injury status with Jerry Jacobs and what happens with Ifeatu Melifonwu, who I think is moving full-time to safety. I think you're going to see a lot of Okudah playing inside, but also with the ability to start outside opposite Amani Oruwariye. Amani and Okudah, if they're healthy and play well, could be a really good starting tandem. I do have concerns about A.J. Parker in the slot. I think that's one where, look, he was a great story last year as an undrafted rookie, played well above his weight class, showed some things that I don't think any of us who watched him at Kansas State ever saw. I'm not happy that he is the starting slot corner uncontested, and he's not. I don't want him to be. I think that's the better way to phrase it is he needed the competition, needs to be pushed. He needs to show that he can earn the job again with a better team around him, and we'll see what happens with that. So that's where I'm at with the cornerback room. I will add in Will Harris has looked good in the outside. Now, they're not in pads. They're not tackling. They're not hitting. Just in terms of what his coverage acumen is, his ability to run with a man, to stay, and to anticipate movement in man coverage has looked good. Much better than he ever did at safety. So I'm brought this up in last week's episode of the Detroit Lions podcast. I'm more than cautiously optimistic for Will Harris that he's going to have a decent year. And if he, again, we've talked about it before, if he's your number 4 corner and number 4 safety, that's a good use for Will Harris. Obviously, it's not what you want out of a third-round pick, but I think we're going to be pretty happy with Will Harris, honestly. I know I'm certainly looking forward to it. I'm hoping that the change suits him well. So with Okudah, again, staying healthy is the big key. He was so good last summer, and I think that gets lost on a lot of folks that saw him go down after an inauspicious one game, not even full game. Yeah, I sure hope it works because, man, he takes an inordinate amount of crap from people for being the sunken cost of a draft pick is something that Chris and I talk about a lot, and I won't get into it now. But remember, it doesn't matter that he was a number 3 overall pick. Now you're just hoping to salvage something out of a player who has a lot of talent but hasn't actually shown it yet. So that's where I'm at with that. From Floundericious. Does this year's entire draft class make the roster? That's a good question. I'm going to say probably not, but I'm going to couch it with the fact that I think that the PUP is where both Jamison Williams and James Mitchell, the 5th-round tight end, are going to start the season, and that probably creates a roster spot for James Houston to sneak onto the 53. James Houston is an interesting one. This is a guy that's got a lot of potential. The Lions are still trying to figure out where he's going to play. They have a guy who's exactly like him in Jared Davis, who they're paying more money to, just a little bit, and who has experience playing with Anzalone before. He's played, in Detroit before. He understands what they want. And Davis is bigger and a little bit faster, and that's going to be the trick is finding a roster spot for both of those guys. And I think having Mitchell go on PUP, and again, he hasn't worked out at all with the team. Let me put it this way. James Houston, Jared Davis, and Julian Okwara don't all 3 make the team. I think 2 do. Your pick on that, depending on how you feel about it. I'll say I don't think they're getting rid of Julian Okwara at all. So that leaves it between JD and Houston. And I actually asked Kelvin Shepard about it when we were at the OTAs last week. And he basically described him as the exact same player, to paraphrase Kelvin. So that's going to be the tough one. That's the push point. Chase Lucas is absolutely making it. He could wind up being, to go back to the last question, he could be your starting slot corner. He looks good. He's very comfortable. He's natural playing inside, and he's also very good on special teams and an accomplished special teams player. If you're a reserve on this team, you better play special teams. Keep that in mind as I answer a couple more questions here, because that will be an overarching feature for the depth on this team. I will say that they do, but again, couched. From the Czech Lion, okay, do we have a playoff team or don't we? So there's a lot that goes into that. A lot of that depends on how it goes around the rest of the NFC. And I look at the NFC, and I'll answer it this way. I think the Packers are very solidly winning the North. Sorry, Lions fans. I got to call it like I see it. That's a really good football team. And I don't think I don't think the NFL in general gives enough credit to the Packers defense. That's a really, really good unit, and they're young. And that's going to be a problem for a long time, even after Aaron Rodgers is gone. So I think they're set. I think in the West, I think it's pretty easy to see that the Rams are going to get back. I'm cautiously optimistic for San Francisco. I don't know what to make of Arizona, and I think Seattle is falling way to the bottom. I think they're well below the Lions. In the East, I like Philadelphia. I like Dallas. I think they're both better than Detroit, but does that make their playoff prospects better? Maybe. South, Tampa Bay looks pretty good. I think New Orleans is going to be better than people expect them to be, but look, that's it. Like, the Lions are in that next tier of teams with Minnesota, with Washington. You could probably put Philadelphia into that group. You can put Arizona maybe into that group of unknowns. Carolina probably fits in that group, although I think the Lions are better than the Panthers. Like, there's a flex point there where the Lions, if they stay healthy and Jared Goff plays well, yes, they could be a playoff team, and it could be an 8-9 record that gets them in. The margin from the first couple of tiers of teams in the NFC down to the next tier, which is where I would put the Lions, is pretty radical, and there's going to be a lot of teams that are getting in at 9-8, 8-9, 10-7. I think that's and look, the Lions, I don't expect them to get there, but can they? Hell yeah, they can. They absolutely can. So I will answer that one. I will waffle on that one as well. By the way, the new tiramisu waffles from Eggo, they're good. Let's go to another question here. From Chad Hale. With a revamped receiving core and a more confident Jared Goff, what kind of impact do you think that will have on Hawkinson given that he's healthy? And with a great season, you think this regime values tight ends enough to reset the market with an extension? I'll answer the second one first. No, I don't. I don't expect them to pay him what David Njoku got. I don't expect them to pay what Darren Waller has gotten. He's going to be in that next tier below it, or else he's not going to be in Detroit. They're not going to pay a tight end $15 million a year or more. I just don't see that. Hawkinson has not proven that he can be that type of weapon. And remember that 3 years in, he gets hurt a lot. He's not necessarily the greatest blocker. Look, he's really good. He does a lot of things very well, but he is not in that elite category yet, and I don't think he can pay for that yet. I will say this. I'll put on my Browns hat for a second. Fans there are like going crazy that they're paying David Njoku that. I think David Njoku is a better athlete than T.J. Hawkinson, and he's certainly become a better blocker, and he wasn't always. But paying what they're paying Njoku, like if the Lions paid that to Hawkinson, 90% of this fan base would be storming Allen Park demanding heads. That's just the way it is. And I think, look, you've got a former NFL and Detroit Lions tight end as your head coach. He will certainly value it more than most people do, and even then, I still don't think that they're paying that premium. I think if Hawkins is going to be here, he's going to have to take the fair market rate and not reset it. As for expectations for him, again with like Okudah, he needs to play 17 games. I think he should catch 70% of the passes thrown his way. I think he should if not get 1,000 yards, certainly be close to it and be a red zone threat. I want more than 5 touchdowns from T.J. Hawkinson. If he's going to get that kind of money, he's going to need to produce in the red zone, and he hasn't always done that yet. He's been good, but there's room for improvement for him to get better there, and that's what I want to see for him. And I do think that an improved Jared Goff and a restructured offense is going to be very good for Hawkinson. I will also say that with Jamison Williams and DJ Chark on the outside, that's going to open up that seam route. Jared Goff has shown that he will throw it this offseason anyways. We'll see when the regular season comes, but I like it a lot. But the other thing is there's a lot more mouths to feed now. DeAndre Swift coming out of the backfield is a superb receiver out of the backfield. You've got Chark, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm not sure that Hawkins is going to put up the 80 catches, 1,200 yards, and 10 touchdowns that a lot of people will want him to. I don't think that's just not the way that the Lions offense works. It's not the way that Jared Goff works best. So I'm thinking that he's probably going to, if he wants to cash in, he's going to wind up cashing in elsewhere. But that's a problem to worry about after next season. Thank goodness. Okay, from Mike. This is something, to preface this is something that Chris and I have talked about on the podcast a little bit, and something that I've written a lot about at Lions Wire is, and I'll read his question now. It was mentioned earlier that it is foolish to expect everybody to take another step forward this year. Who are the prime candidates to take a step back? And just to frame the question a little bit more, everybody thinks that everybody's going to keep getting better. That's not the way the NFL works. There are players that were great last year that aren't going to play as well as they did last year this year. And I think that's the question that he's asking here. Who are the prime candidates to do that? I'm going to make a lot of people on the podcast Slack angry, and I'm going to say that one of them is Jerry Jacobs, a personal favorite of the podcast, a guy that I personally like. I know that Chris likes. We do the Seatbelt Gang thing with him. Please check that out, seatbeltgang.com. Look, I love Jerry, but he's coming off of an injury. He's not getting that full work in the offseason. I'm not going to say that he feels like he's established, because he certainly doesn't. If you know him at all, you'll know that he's going to keep scrapping for it. But for him to play the way that he did last year again, now that he's a known commodity, I think it's going to be tough. That's a challenge for him. I'm not going to bet against him. But if you're looking for a candidate who could fall back a little bit, Jerry Jacobs is one. I think Jamal Williams is another one who's precarious because Craig Reynolds is breathing down his neck as the running back too. And again, that's nothing against Jamal. That's more that I think Craig Reynolds has showed a whole lot. Look, Jamal, he's on the last year of his contract. He's getting a little bit older. He's very good between the tackles. Outside the tackles, not so much. I think he's got to prove to himself that he deserves the amount and volume of carries that he got a year ago. And to expect him to tote the rock again the way that he did, that's one that I would be concerned about. One other one that I will give you, and it's someone that folks probably don't want to hear. Jonah Jackson made the Pro Bowl last year as the left guard. I'm not sure he's going to make the Pro Bowl ever again. I think some of that was a little bit of a circumstance. Look, he's a good player. I don't expect him to fall off. I don't think he's going to be like, oh, we got to replace this guy. But I'm not sure that he can sustain the level of success that he played with all last year. The good thing is Frank Ragnow's coming back. Taylor Decker is to his left. He doesn't have to be that kind of a star anymore. So he's kind of a weird candidate for it. Should probably pick somebody on the defensive side of the ball. Amani probably is, and I'll say it in this. 5 interceptions is going to be tough to replicate because I don't think he's going to get thrown at as much, in part because I think they're going to challenge the other side of the field more. But also, this is another guy. He's playing for his next contract. He's playing with a lot of pressure on him. I think he's going to be good, but I'm not sure that he's going to have the caliber of season that we saw last year. I think he'll be close, but he's another guy who's a candidate. Remember, it's a candidate to fall off. Doesn't mean that he will fall off. He's a candidate to do it. So that's a good one. From my guy Fab, who has the best hair. I'm partial to Alex Anzalone just because he's pretty. I will say Savion Smith, the cornerback, has an interesting do, and I'm kind of intrigued by it. I kind of like it. So he's another one. Godwin Igwebuike, when he lets his hair down, literally, it's really nice too. So that's where I would go with that. Kelvin Shepard, by the way, and the coaching staff, really good hair too. Here's a good one. So Maddie asked the original question, Maddie K, and then Fab piled in on it. What player that fans love do you think that will be most likely to get cut? Sorry, I read that poorly. And then tangentially, who's the best player getting cut? What player that fans love do you think will be the most likely to get cut? I think that's Quintez Cephas. And I don't expect him to get cut. And again, that's because I think Jameson Williams is going on the PUP list, and that creates room for Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, Trinity Benson, and Quintez Cephas. Look, all those guys are essentially competing for 2 roster spots, but it becomes 3 when Jamo goes on the PUP. So I think Cephas makes it that way, but he's going to have to show something on special teams. And he is a prime candidate to get dropped after somebody comes back off PUP. I know he's got a lot of fans. I know that one of the misconceptions I'll say this about Quintez Cephas. I think people think that he's bigger than he is. He's maybe 6'2", more like 6'1", and he's not as physically hulking as you would expect the way that he's talked about. Just keep that in mind when you're people talking about it like he's Kenny Golladay. He's nowhere close to the size of Kenny Golladay, folks. So keep that in mind. Who's the best player getting cut? If Romeo Okwara isn't on PUP, I think he gets cut. Let's put it that way. And it's nothing against Romeo, but I think he is what Aiden Hutchinson is. They brought Charles Harris back. I know they like Charles Harris a lot. I think if you're looking long term, it is not terribly expensive to cut him. And Julian offers a little bit more in terms of pass rush juice than what Romeo does in terms of the Okwara brothers. James Houston, again, is in there. If they really want to go on this youth movement and they realize that Romeo isn't going to be part of this team after 2022, he's a guy. I'm not going to say that I expect him to get cut, but don't be surprised if that happens. The other one to watch is Jamal Williams. Again, Craig Reynolds has looked very good this offseason. Godwin is here. I know they like Greg Bell. They still have Jermar Jefferson. They have a lot of depth there if they want to save a little bit of money and again, ride with the youth movement. Now, look, Jamal Williams is incredibly popular in the locker room. The coaches love him. The players love him. It would not be a well-received cut, but it's one of those where, look, the NFL, it's a harsh business, man. that's something to consider. They've got a lot of running back talent, and I do think that one or two of the running backs, especially Jamar, who I do think is getting cut, I don't think he's making the team. He's going to get signed somewhere else, and this is something, again, I've written about at Lions Wire. Chris and I have talked about on the podcast. There are going to be players who don't make this team who wind up playing elsewhere. And as Lions fans, you need to see that as a positive and not like, oh, how the hell did we let this guy go? No, that's not the proper reaction. The proper reaction is like, damn, that guy couldn't make our team. That's how good we are. That's the frame of mind you need to have with this Lions team. Please, I beg you. We'll make the last one. And again, I'm saving a couple of these for the podcast because they're really good questions and I want Chris's input on them as well. Okay, this is from Ryan. Who's the player that you expect to take the biggest step forward? Hawkinson is a good one. I think DeAndre Swift. Swift is there's so much to like about him, but he's such a big physical, like his upper body is just shredded. If he would realize that he can use some of that power as a runner, I think it would really take him to the next level. Because his natural instinct is to try to avoid that first contact. And because of that, he winds up getting hit and winds up going down because he doesn't necessarily have the strength through the contact. And I know that will help. If he would initiate the contact instead of trying to avoid it, he could be so much better. And I think he's starting to get that mindset. I know that the coaches have told him that. Let's hope it sinks in. And we'll see a bigger and better DeAndre Swift. Another guy that I'm really looking to step up, Aleem McNeil. I think the switch to the 4-man front is going to do wonders for him. I think he's going to get 5 sacks this year. He's certainly capable of that. I think he's going to become one of the best nose tackles in the game right away and can also play that 3-tech. And I'll haul in another guy. Jay-Sean Cornell is going to be the guy that plays behind him and sometimes next to him. Jay-Sean looks really good. I was very impressed in listening to him at the mandatory minicamp when he came out and talked. He's got a much more refreshing attitude than what we'd ever seen from him before. He's not taking everything for granted anymore. He's healthy. He looks good. He looks big. I expect him to be a surprise player. Not that was the question that was asked, but if you're looking for a guy who's going to be a surprise guy who not only makes the team but makes an impact, Jay Sean Cornell. That's it. We'll wrap that here. It's been 20 minutes. Thanks for listening. Tune in again, tentatively Sunday night for the Detroit Lions podcast. Stay tuned, though. Click the like and click the subscribe button so you know when we're going live. That will answer all your questions on that. And please keep checking out Lions Wire. We got a lot of fun features coming that preview training camp and preview the entire season. Thanks.